I'm Catherine Sheeran, host of the podcast Horse Tales with Cat. Today's guest needs no introduction if you're anybody who rides in Canada. Mario DesLauriers burst onto the show jumping scene in 1984 at the age of 19 when he won the World Cup finals in Gothenburg, Sweden. He was the youngest rider to ever capture that honor, and it is a record that stands today. He went on to ride Aramis in the 1984 Olympics, where he finished fourth individually, as did the team. Since then, he has ridden an additional 2 Olympic Games, 1988 and 2020. He has won 2 Canadian National Show Jumping Championships in both 1992 and 1997. He has also competed in 12 World Cup finals. Today, he is meeting with us as he prepares for his final week at the North American at Spruce Meadows. Welcome, Mario.
Good morning, Sharon.
So I want to start off with, you've just been named once again to the Canadian Olympic team. Congratulations on that. And it seems fitting to me, given that you were one of the riders that qualified the Canadian team for a spot at these Olympics. Tell me a little bit about the horse that you've chosen to ride, because if I'm not mistaken, you qualified with both Bartolino 2 as well as Emerson, but it's Emerson that you're taking. Am I correct with that?
Yes, you are correct. Emerson went to the Pan Am Games that helped qualify Canada for this Olympic Games, and he's been my lead horse for, I would say, the last year and a half or so. And he's jumped very, very well, and he's very consistent. He's a nice 12-year-old bay gelding and full of energy. And that's the one I'll be taking to Paris.
Okay. So now I want to back up and I want to go to your early years. You were 11 years old when the Olympics came to Montreal and Bromont. And as I understand it, your father was actually running Bromont at that point. So
Bromont, we moved as a family when I was about 6 years old to Bromont from Venise en Quebec. So Roger came to work for the DesLauriers family. And soon after that, 6-7 years later, already the pre-Olympics came. And then the Olympics came to Bromont as part of the Montreal Games. So all the riding happened in Bromont. So I was very lucky to, be able to roam around the whole place, seeing the cross country, the dressage, the jumping, and seeing Michel Vaillancourt win a silver medal there.
And would you say that was the beginning of your real inspiration to want to compete?
When I moved to Bromont, I was so lucky to be there, as there were so many sports to do there. So I learned how to ski. I played ice hockey until I was 20 years old. But I would say you're right. I got really the bug to keep riding and do it at a higher level when the Olympics came to Bromont and I saw Michel win his silver medal. That was I think, a turning point in my horse career.
Now, I know everybody knows you as having won the World Cup finals in 1984, but can you lead me up to that point with the horses that you rode before Aramis?
As a junior, from 6, 7 on, I was already competing in the junior jumper. I had a famous hunter that was called Venus. And then my first jumper was called Can Do. And then I rode several horses for other clients that my dad had that sometimes client had trouble with. So I would get on and try to, get them better for them. I had a great horse called Beowulf that was lightning fast. I rode a horse called Fraterno. I had a horse called Chester that we got from the Curtains. I got many junior jumpers. So in those days, the horse sport in Quebec was very strong, and in Toronto. So we travel all summer. I think every week we had a show. somewhere. And so we did that. And then the winter was more school and playing hockey and doing skiing. And then when I turned about 15, 16, that's when we got a horse, because we always had the dream to go to the next Olympics. That was Los Angeles. So we got a horse called Aramis that was only 5 at the time. We actually bought the horse in Hemingford. Mr. Baudouin from Bombardier was nice enough to help us out by this horse. And that's when the Olympic dreams kind of began. So that's when I started to go to Florida. So I was already 15, 16. I think I was there one time before without Aramis, just with the junior jumpers. And then the next time I went, I think that was maybe 80, 82, 83. That's when Aramis came, and that's when the story with him started.
So he was quite young when you took him to the Olympics.
Very young. He was only 8 years old.
Wow. And were you training with your father at that point and in Florida?
I was training with my father. And that winter, I went to train with Michael Matz. Michael was then married to a Matters. And so through the French connection there, that's how we kind of knew Michael. So I trained all winter with Michael, and we were, jumping medium courses, meter 40, meter 45. And then when we left that winter in Florida, I kept riding with Ian. So then we went to Detroit. I remember Detroit, Michigan. Then we made our way to Toronto. And then we jumped some World Cups in Canada, at Cheltenham, at I think Wonderland somewhere in Toronto. So those were all qualification to get on the team for the Olympic Games. So already the year before, I did the indoor circuit a little bit. So I was kind of getting used to the height, and Aramis was very comfortable. And that's when the story kept on going.
Now, then you went back to the Olympics in 1998 with Boxcar Willie. Tell me a little bit about that horse.
So after a couple of years after the Olympics from Los Angeles, Aramis got sold. And then I kind of went to Virginia, was married for the first time. And we had a horse called Boxcar that Rodney Jenkins was riding. And he was a little difficult, but pretty good horse. And did some World Cup, did some indoor circuit with him too. And I was lucky enough to qualify to go to Seoul in '88 also. And Ian and I, and I think Laura
Bilisky,
John Anderson were there. I think Lisa Carlson also was on that team. So we went on to Seoul, and we were fourth by team, individual, qualified with individual, but that didn't go so good. We went to the stadium, and there was maybe a bit too big for Boxcar. But anyway, great experience again. And yeah, it's always kind of cool to go to these Olympic Games.
Yeah, so that leads me into a really good question that I've had from a lot of amateurs, and it's a question of mine as well, because even at my height, I get nervous. But I'm thinking, despite all your years of experience, when you walk into that ring and you see the height and width of those jumps and the technical course set up, is there ever any moment where you question whether you're ready?
I mean, we're trying to prepare as good as we can. We think about every scenario, or we jump courses that the course builder is gonna do, but we've jumped like this time around in Paris is Gregory Baudot. So he was just here in Spruce designing the courses. We saw him in Florida. So we saw him 4 or 5 times already, starting from last year. So not that we have any idea what he's going to build, but we kind of, see what he's kind of always playing with. So we have a little preparation that way, and it's all about getting your horse to ride well. I think if the horse is riding well and focuses well, you can basically ride most courses comfortably.
Fair enough. As you say, I guess you can start to judge that there's not going to be any big surprises when it comes time to the Olympics if you're familiar with the tracks that they've been building all along.
Exactly. I mean, it's everybody has a bit, their way of doing things. Like Leopoldo, we jumped him for the last 20 years, so we know what to expect. Time allowed, but Gregory Baudot at the same time, he also uses a little bit of time allowed. His lines or happens very quickly. I would say his lines sometimes are a little awkward, so the horses have to really be able to add one once in a while and then leave one out, depending how you meet each jump. So it gets, I guess at my age and with my experience, I've done it so long that you have to adapt, and you adapt pretty quickly.
Yeah, that leads me into another question along that vein. As you said, you've been doing the sport a long time. Some of the up and coming riders don't necessarily have your depth of experience. Do you feel that is a big edge for you over the younger riders? They may be, brave and bold, but they don't necessarily have the experience to make the same judgments when it comes to how to ride a line. Would you say that's fair?
I think there's 2 ways to think about that. I think when I was young and I won the World Cup, I came to that 1984 World Cup with a great horse. I had no worries in the world. I was there in my mind, I was there to go and win the World Cup. I had, that's how I went in the ring all the time. I think as you gain experience, you know a lot more about the sport, and you know what can go wrong a lot more. So that's another aspect that you have to control with your experience. Yes, you do know much more about what's going on and everything. You're very seasoned. God, I've been doing this over 45 years only at Spruce Meadows. So you just know more. So you have to adapt and you have to control yourself and you deal with it in a different way. When you're younger, you're a little more bold, and you obviously don't know as much. You haven't done it as much, and you only think about what you know, not what a guy that has done it for 50 years know. So it's a different thing a little bit, but still, the passion is there. You still get nervous. It's that hasn't changed.
Well, that's something that leads me into my next question, which is, you've had longevity in this sport. How have you kept the passion so long?
Well, I think it's I'm in this business for a long time. My dad started. It's always exciting to try to find the new horse, find the rare new horse that everybody's looking for. And these days, the sport got a lot more expensive for these better horses. And that's always the thrill of trying to come up with a new horse. My daughter rides, so to get her some horses that suits her, uh, clients that ride with me, the fun or the thrill of buying and selling a horse, and a horse can go somewhere like when I went to Tokyo, I sold a horse before that called Amsterdam. That was really a famous horse. It's kind of, that sport keeps you alive. It kind of, there's always something that you can bring to the table, and uh, and and you can do many things that are different in the sport. It's not just about riding. Connection to people, bringing along a young horse, selling one. I mean, there's all kinds of things that keeps it very interesting.
So it sounds like you're a horseman. You're passionate about the entire sport. It's not just about riding.
Exactly. And I have friends that, other riders that help me ride horses that we even own, and that I think that person can ride better. It's all about connecting the horse and the rider that can do the best job as possible, you know?
You mentioned earlier riding with your daughter, Lucy. I thought it was interesting. You now have that distinction, as does Matt Cohn, of having ridden for both the American and the Canadian equestrian teams. And Lucy obviously has ridden for the American equestrian team. I was curious, is there a difference in the approach when you were riding for the American team versus the Canadian team? Do you find they're different in their energy or vibe?
Of course, it's a bigger country. There's more people. The structure is different. Um, I mean, it's other than that. I mean, I'm Canadian. I rode for Canada a long time. It was a bit of a not a yeah, it was a bit weird to go and change your flag. Had to get my American passport. Had to wait for a while. Then got on the team a few times, and it's a little harder, I would say, over there because the mass is much bigger. A lot more people ride. It's a little more complicated. There's politics on both sides. But at the end of the day, it's a bit the same, but maybe at a higher level over there, a little more complicated. But, it was fun. It was fun to do while it happened.
And I think great for you. I mean, that speaks to your talent to me because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of riders in the US. I always feel like there's a lot of depth to their teams. And I don't know, is that simply because there's a larger number of people, or is it also there is more money behind the sport in the
I think
US?
I would say both. And the sport right now in the US is super strong. When you go to a horse show like the Winter Equestrian Festival, or even to Ocala now, it seems like all the shows are really full. Like there's a big turnout in all FEI places. Um, Obviously, kids there, the equitation is a big thing. A lot of kids come out at that level. Um, and yeah, it's much bigger. I think in Canada right now, the sport is a lot of people are doing it, but at the high level, it's a little slim right now. So that's the difference. And then the money that gets spent over there, there's obviously a lot of wealth in the United States, and it helps the horse industry a lot.
Now, how do you feel the sport has changed at that higher level, just even in terms of competition? I know now watching horses at the level you're jumping, they have tremendous scope. They're some of these horses look like they could jump a meter 70. How has that changed the actual courses that you jump and how you approach the ride?
I think let's say you go back to 84 when I had Aramis, that was a scopier horse than what we have now, I think. I think the material of the jumping, the rails and the fillers and the jumps, uh, that's what's changed a lot. And the horses, obviously, from 84, from the breeding standpoint of those years, they bred a much heavier horse, maybe a braver horse, and a stronger horse. Right now, they have horses that are much more refined. Uh, they did a lot of crossbreeding, and they're a little more bloody, I would say. But you still find these bigger horse that look scopier. And I would say the courses are much more technical now, and the rails are the cups are much flatter. So your horses have to, the horse and rider have to be much more one to get around, and it's much more delicate. So precision is a lot more right now than it was years ago.
Oh, okay. I like that analysis. That's quite interesting. So now let's back up to the Olympics in 2020. You were there with Bartolina too. I really loved this mare. I would have to tell you, I remember watching you in the ring with her and thinking she was pretty cool. And she was young, was she not? At the time, she was young enough. I mean,
Well,
she
that was
11?
3 years ago, so she was 12. She's 15 now. Yes.
Okay.
And
Now,
she went to her World Games at 9 years old. So she did a lot in her career. I got her when she was 8 in Florida. She came to Florida in January when she was 8 years old. So I've almost had her 8 years already.
wow. That's a long time in
That
horse
is a
world.
long time, and a long time jumping at a big level. As an 8 year old, she was already doing 3 and 4 stars. So she's been a great horse for me.
So there you were at the Olympics in Tokyo by yourself. I felt so badly for you. There's no team, there's COVID. I remember thinking, and actually I think I asked your father about this at the time, because if I remember correctly, he was actually broadcasting the Olympics in Bromont on the big screen, if I recall
Correct.
correctly.
Yes. Yes.
And I remember thinking, what was an Olympic experience as a rider there when you are on your own? Because normally you'd at least have your teammates to be talking with. And my understanding was the isolation was such that you were kind of on your own, and there was also no family. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird 10 days. I was there with Mark, our chef d'équipe then, and Karen was there. There was, a few that did the 3-day event, a few dressage people. So we had a bit of a team in the barn area. And but then for the jumping, obviously, I was, only Canadian. But all the people that I jump with at most shows, like the Americans, like the Irish, like so, you were with people. I mean, it wasn't like you were totally left alone, but there was a different feeling because, as you said, there was no 3 other riders, no other teammates. I mean, some other teams had one, but me as a Canadian, because I was the only one that qualified to go. Uh, it was a bit of a lonely time. Like, even to go back and forth to the hotel, we couldn't stop anywhere. The stadium was half empty. We couldn't go around Tokyo or visit. It was, in a sense, I was happy to be there, but it was also a long enough 10 days because we couldn't do so much.
Well, that's why I'm so excited you're going to Paris.
I know, and Paris, such a great city. I speak the language, the venue. I mean, I've seen pictures and videos. It's going to be so great, and we're going there as a team. We're going to spend 10 days before in Belgium to do a little training camp. And no, that's exciting to go there, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, tell me a little bit about the venue, because as I understand, you're riding out where Chateau Versailles is, are you not? That
Correct.
just sounds familiar, like
the
incredible.
the stadium is like if you take a big rectangle, one of the short end is open that you see all the fountains and all the way to the chateau, and the three other side is the public, all the grandstand. And I'm sure the barns are in the back of that, where the bleachers are. But it looks spectacular. Looks very spectacular.
And where will you stay when your riders, are you staying in the regular Olympic Village in the city
We
and having to commute out?
No, we're staying right there in Versailles in a hotel close by. I think it's even about walking distance. I don't think it's so far from the venue, because I think it's going to be a little chaotic in Paris with all what's going on, even politically right now. It's a little bit wild over there, and I think yeah, we usually equestrian. We're not as young as most athletes, and we usually stay at hotels close to our venue because it's always outside of the cities that the Olympics are held. So that's what is going on. That's what we will stay there in Versailles.
That was a question a lot of people asked me, and I thought, I have no idea. At the Olympics, as you say, normally the equestrian sports are nowhere near the main arenas, so I wondered how they set that up.
Correct.
Another question I have about the Olympics that came up with a lot of people when I told them I was interviewing you was, what is it like in terms of the warm-up? Never having actually attended the Olympics, I wondered myself, does the chef de keep warm you up, or do you have your own ground person or a coach that you're working with? And is the chef de keep more likely to be there at the in gate giving you advice? How does that all unfold?
I think everybody's a bit different. I mean, I've known Ian a long time for, most of my riding career, even as a young guy. So I think we're both on the same wavelength. We see eye to eye on everything. Not that he's been at my side for 40 years, but I have a staff that's been with me a long time, and we're used to a certain warm up, and we keep that routine. We don't change so much. Ian may bring a few things to the table, but that kind of get established a little bit when we're going to do our training camp, or even since Pan Am Games, since Ian kind of took over the team, it's been implemented in what we do. So it's nothing that's going to be brand new. It's it's in the wheel, and it's organized already, and he knows the horses enough, and so if he has an idea or a pointer, he will say it.
And will your wife Lisa and your daughter Lucy,
Yes, the
will
whole
they?
family's coming. Jack's coming, Lisa, Lucy, my owners, my father. We're trying to get all this straightened out so we don't have to deal with anything once we're there. So I don't get phone calls to get a ticket here and there. So everything is done, and we can go there with our heads clear.
And with Lucy and Lisa both being riders, are they down in the warm-up ring? Is that allowed in
No,
the Olympics?
they're not
No.
down in the warm up. No.
Okay. That was another question a lot of people had, and I thought better get the answer to that.
Yeah. They're close by, but they're not going to be, it's a little chaotic when you go to these things, and it's very strict, and the way you get your passes and everything is a lot of work and a lot of you know, screening, and it's yeah, it's a very tight area with the IOC running the whole thing. It gets very complicated.
Okay. So I have just a couple more questions. One was, do you have a favorite course designer? Is there somebody that, when you know that they're going to be the course designer at that event, it excites you?
I mean, the guy that's doing it is a very, very good course designer. I've known him for 4 or 5 years. He's been coming up in France. I mean, Leopoldo, I've seen Leopoldo through my whole career. I think I jumped the Pan Am Games in Venezuela when it was Leopoldo's first championship job or course building. And obviously, he's been the resident course builder at Spruce Meadows since then. I have there's I would say a handful of good course designer that I prefer to others, but it's good to have the variety of course designer, and it's not like I look at a show and if that guy designed, I will go to that show.
Right.
You know, it is what it is, and I go to the shows I like, and whoever is the course designer, that's the one I get.
Well, that leads me into my next question, which is, what is your favorite venue? I have a feeling I know, but I want to hear the answer from you.
I mean, obviously, being from Bromont was a close one in my heart. I jumped a lot. I mean, since it started, I've jumped in Bromont. Spruce is another favorite of my venue. I mean, I love spending the summer here, and I think it's a great venue to make a horse. Like every year, I bring a few young horses here, and they learn so much. It's they learn basically more than anywhere else you can bring them in a year. Uh, being jumping on the grass, the being the decoration, being the amount of rings they compete in. I think you make a lot of progress here. I mean, in Europe, there's, La Bowl is a fantastic show. Dublin is, I mean, there's so many good shows now. It's rare that you hit a bad one anymore.
And is there any venue that you haven't been to that you would really love to go to?
I would love to go to Aachen. I'm kind of running out of time a little bit, but I have never been. Lucy and my wife competed in Aachen. Both showed on the team. I think both won the Nations Cup there for the Americans, and I've never been to Aachen. So that would be maybe a place that I would, kind of like to go. I have 2 8-year-olds that jump unbelievable, and maybe next year they're ready for that, plus my older ones. So yeah, that would be a good way to kind of get that done.
Yeah, I absolutely think you need to strike that off your list if it's on there. And you're not too old yet. I'm thinking
That's right.
Ian jumped a few years longer, so there's still the opportunity.
Could be possible.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing you in Aachen. I'm going to believe for you. So finally, before we go, I feel like you really have something to prove at these Olympics. You finished 4th in the individual in 1984, and you were also 4th with the team that year. You were so close to the podium, and I think you have a great partnership going. What do you, think is possibly going to happen both for you as an individual and for the Canadian team? Are you pretty optimistic about being on the podium?
I mean, listen, it's I think it's a dream of every rider to win a medal. I think we have a really good team. I think we have a deep team, and we have 4 very strong riders and horses, experience. I think right now all the horses seem to be jumping super well. we're keeping everything simple and try to do the best for the horses to get them there, keep him going well, and get them there in that shape. You know, there's probably 20 countries, so everybody has the same goal. So I think it's going to be a hard fight, but I think our chances are we have big chances. I think we really do. We performed super well at the Pan Am Games, and it was a big test at the Pan Am. It's not, you know, years ago the Pan Ams were much easier, but I would say the Pan Am the last time were a big competition, very strong. So I think we're well prepared, and I think our chances are very good.
And does the 3-rider format make things more difficult?
Oh, I think so. I think absolutely. I think that every riders know that their score is counting, that there's no drop score, and yeah, there's a lot more pressure. I think you have to, you know, you have to get your job done, and you have to finish the course, and yeah, it's definitely harder.
Well, Mario, I just want to say thank you again so much for meeting with me this morning. I want to wish you the best of luck this week at the North American at Spruce Meadows, and I want to wish you and Emerson every success at the Olympics. We'll definitely be rooting for you here from Ottawa.
Great, thank you.